Hey there, welcome back to Authenticity Unleashed. I'm Pam Rader, your host, and I am excited to dive into the dirty details of another big D, disappointment. Disappointment. You know, I think that disappointment gets a bad rap because we don't use it the right way. I think that disappointment has so much to teach us if we know how to look at it and learn to ask the right questions. Disappointment can be such an amazing catalyst for growth if we dissect it in a new way. And that's what I want to do today. So let's just talk about what disappointment is first and foremost. It's basically when our outcomes don't live up to our expectations. When we're disappointed, sometimes we feel sad or angry. And there's lots of things that can trigger our disappointment. Small things, where there's a lineup at your favorite restaurant, or a big thing, you didn't get the promotion. But the one thing that the disappointment has in common is that the greater the disparity between the outcome and what you expected to happen, the greater the disappointment. So, what do we do? Well, we can't avoid disappointment. Not everything's going to go the way we expect, and it shouldn't. But what about this? In an effort to become the best version of ourselves and share that version of ourselves with the world, in an effort to have less suffering in our lives, could we apply some new thinking to disappointment that will serve us in both of those endeavors? The first thing I want to dive into about disappointment is take a look when you're disappointed and remember, what was it that had you have that expectation in the first place? What was it that made you take the chance on something? For instance, if you're disappointed that you didn't get a job or a promotion or recognized, or you didn't get the book deal, or uh, you didn't execute a task the way that you thought you would, ask yourself, like, what was my motivation? Why did I start that thing? Now, there's two things that could happen here. One is that you're reminded of the motivation, and that why is big enough for you to then look at the reality of the situation. Did I not do enough work? Do I need a new pathway forward here to keep pursuing this because my why is big enough? Instead of just accepting defeat and being disappointed, we can examine it and say, wow, my why really matters to me. And I'm going to find a way rather than an excuse. Now, the second aspect of that is when you remember why you took the chance, you might be surprised to find it wasn't a very good reason at all. And this happened to me lots in my life. There was a time when I really, really wanted to go and be a part of assisting one of my teachers on some of the big teacher trainings, the big yoga teacher trainings that he offered. It felt very prestigious to be invited to go and assist those trainings. Now, there was a big long list of people. You had to pay your own way, show up and give a week of your life, taking time off work, all of that. It wasn't even something that I would be paid for. But in my mind, there was prestige attached to it, ego attached to it, validation attached to it, feeling part of something attached to it. And when I really examined my disappointment at not being chosen the first few times I applied, I learned something about myself, that I don't want to be motivated by trying to get other people's validation, because then I give my power away. I give the keys to my happiness away to that external situation. Now, eventually, when I got a little more grounded and ego less, and I wanted to go to show up and be of service, it's like my energy shifted and the universe said, okay, you're ready. And I was offered those opportunities. But as long as my ego was involved, that was actually just thwarting any real growth. So you can ask yourself, but what part of me really wanted this thing to happen and why? There's deep, deep learning in that. So next, it's important to acknowledge your feelings. I would never say shove your feelings down. If you're disappointed, sometimes it hurts. Sometimes you feel angry. Sometimes you feel frustrated, defeated. And disappointments should absolutely be felt. All feelings are valid and we should welcome them. But here's the thing: if we linger in disappointment too long, we actually wear away our own resilience. You see, resilience is not lingering in what's unnecessary. Resilience is not lingering in what's unnecessary. And it's unnecessary to linger in the feeling of disappointment for very long. Feel it, express it, examine it, and then let it be. Because when we rehash the past and we wish for a different future over and over again, we keep recreating the disappointment. And you guys, we're doing something really horrible to ourselves when we do that. We're teaching ourselves to be in the experience of disappointment as a way of being. Yuck. I don't want to teach my cells to walk around this earth feeling disappointed. I want to teach my cells to be in a state of wonder, in a state of gratitude, in a state of awe. But you have to remember that what we practice, we get good at. And if you're practicing feeling disappointed all the time and rehashing old disappointments and forecasting future disappointments, you're teaching your cells to be small and sad. So don't linger too long. Feel your feelings and then let it go. Wipe the slate clean and take the next action. Now, the next layer of this that I want to share is really evaluating our expectations, because sometimes we have the right motivation and we've just had a way out of whack expectations. Were your expectations even based in reality? Did you do the work? And if you did do the work and it still didn't work out, maybe were your expectations like just way too high? The next piece would be to evaluate your expectations. You see, your expectations might not have been based in reality. You could have been comparing your outcomes to someone else, someone who's maybe had more experience, someone who's had a lot of practice at the thing that you were striving to do or be or get. And therefore, your expectations might have been out of line with what was accessible to you right now. And it's very useful to look at that. For instance, what if you wrote a manuscript? It's your first manuscript ever. You write it, you share it with some friends, they tell you it's great, and you send it to the New Yorker, and you're going to have it published, or you want to have it published, and you don't get a response. Well, maybe, just suggesting that sending your first manuscript to one of the biggest publishers in the world might have been shooting a little too high. When Michael Jordan shoots his shot, he makes it look easy, that he just takes these chances or took these chances. But the reality is, in the background, he'd been shooting millions of shots for years to be able to make that shot look easy. So you can reevaluate, well, what's a realistic expectation for a person that's just starting out? And that might be to get 100 copies made and send them out to local publications with a personal letter and see if you can get anyone to publish your manuscript and start from there. So adjusting our expectations can really be a good way, not to avoid disappointment, but to step into more of a feeling of success. Consider the probabilities, right? Math beats mindset. The math doesn't favor just a one-time shot. The math favors you going out and doing the work. The math favors consistency over time. The math favors the person who keeps showing up. So if you took your one shot and it didn't go well, reevaluate. Maybe lower your expectation for yourself to start with and get consistent and build up to that big goal that you have. Now, that doesn't mean giving up on your dreams. It just means getting real with what it's going to take. Getting real with yourself is a brilliant thing to do. Now, what about your expectations of others? If others are consistently disappointing you, and this is one that I hear a lot. Oh, that person should be doing this or shouldn't be doing that. And they never come in early or they never stay late or they always yell or they should know better. Some version of that old story is you being disappointed with someone else not showing up the way you think they should. Now, there's so much around this, and I'm going to pull apart a couple of things. So, first of all, did you express what your expectation was? Because if you repress your expectations, then what happens is you're forcing the people around you to respond to an invisible instruction manual that you have made up in your head. And then when they don't meet that invisible expectation, you immediately start to resent them. And when you resent somebody, ask yourself, how do you treat someone when you resent them? It's probably detrimental to your relationships when you have unexpressed expectations and then you just walk around feeling disappointed. So did I express myself? And if not, go express yourself. If you did, maybe there's some refinement to make with your request. The second aspect of this idea of others disappointing us is we often fall in love with and see people's potential. We see their potential and we envision this future for them, especially parents with their kids. We envision this future for them. And when they do something different and don't live up to that projection, that thing we made up in our imagination, hear that, in your imagination, when they don't live up to that imaginary vision you have for them, then we're disappointed. Well, you know what potential is? Potential is just what you would do in their situation. It's you projecting what you would do in someone else's situation. And you're really robbing people of their autonomy. You're robbing people of their creativity. You're robbing people of their own expression and their own journey if we expect them to follow our path, our journey, and do what we say to do. So, are you dealing with reality? Is your expectation based in reality? Can this person even pull this off? Have I expressed it? And is that even something that they want? Because a lot of our expectations around other people are just things that would make us more comfortable. We would expect that other people don't challenge our worldviews. We expect that other people know what respect means to us. And when they don't, they're disappointed. But what about if when we feel disappointed by someone else's activities or lack thereof, or achievement or lack thereof, we dive in and say, what is that really? Am I projecting what I wish for onto another person? Did I express myself? Is there something here for me to learn? Am I outsourcing my happiness to an attachment, to an outcome that I don't even have control of because I've given over that power to another person? Maybe you take the power back and you realize that your happiness was never tied to what another person does. Your happiness is 100% your responsibility. Your happiness and your results are 100% your responsibility. Now, when it comes time to evaluate our disappointments, I would love if you could look at these as disappointment as a really sweet little arrow, just pointing like, oh yeah, there's something wonderful to learn here that's going to make me a little bit more free. It's going to make me a little bit more free. So recently, I felt a little disappointed with someone who had promised to do something for me at a certain time, and that thing wasn't done. And I had to remind that person, and I felt very frustrated. And my frustration was born out of my disappointment. Now, before I went and lost it on this person and said, I'm so disappointed in you, and you said you were going to do this and you didn't, I sat and thought, why am I so disappointed? And here's what I got to, folks, that when I say I'm going to do something, I do it because I actually still have an attachment a little bit to the validation of others, to managing people's perceptions of me, that they think that I am an organized person who does what they say they're going to do. Now, don't get me wrong. That's integrity as well. I absolutely want to be that person, but there is still that attachment to, I want other people to recognize that I'm organized and my word means something. That means something to me. So when this person gave their word and didn't do the thing they said they do, it triggered my judgment on them. It just triggered my judgment. And when I look at judgment, I can say, ooh, whatever I judge out there is something that I'm afraid to be judged about. So even as in a situation where I could have just made the other person wrong, and to be fair, they gave their word, they didn't keep it. That makes a relationship unworkable. Great. And see, there's still something for me to learn. I was like, there was no need to be so triggered by that. I can just go in and say, hey, when you gave your word to me and said that you were going to do this and you didn't, it occurred for me like you didn't value this project very much. And the result was that I felt disappointed and resentful, and I don't treat you very well when I feel that way. So this is simple cleanup. But beyond that, there was still learning for me. So I hope this gives you some ideas about how you can look at disappointment in a new light as a roadmap to discovering yet unhealed parts of yourself. And for those of you who have kids, wouldn't it be great to have new conversations about disappointment around the dinner table that point children to disappointment as access to growth and something to be pulled apart, not ashamed of, and a catalyst towards living our best lives? Food for thought. Thank you for listening. If you like the show, please share the show. Please leave your comments on the show. Rate the show. That helps it grow. My hope is that I can help lead you and all the listeners to living a little bit more in alignment with what matters most to you, living your most authentic and fulfilled life. Until next time, have a great one.